In today's video, I want to chat to you guys about 5 different things that you can do if you owe the receiver of revenue money. Good day, my name is Heinrich Revere. I'm the owner of SA Accounting Network and I've been in the accounting industry since 2008. Over the years, we've managed to help a lot of different people with different various types of SARS debt. And I think that's what I want to discuss with you guys today, just to give you guys a brief overview of all the options that you have if you do end up owing the receiver of revenue some money. So just once again, remember to give the video a like and remember to subscribe to my channel, and let me shoot down to my computer, then I can show you guys what this talk is about. Yeah, so the thing that I prepared to you guys today is just 5 practical things what you can do when you owe the receiver of revenue money. So I'm going to discuss each one of these things individually as well. So the first option is obviously to pay the balance due by the due date. The second thing is if a debt is disputed, to apply for a suspension of debt. We'll go into that. Payment arrangements, debt compromises, and liquidations. Those are basically the 5 options that you've got. So let's maybe look at the first one. So if once you submit your tax return, the receiver of revenue is going to give you an assessment, and on that assessment there's going to be 2 dates on there. So you can see I just copied these little pieces from assessment that we did quite recently. So you can see we submitted a tax return for a client. There was a 2022 tax return. You can see the first payment due date was the 1st of March. And you can see over here is the second date that they give you an interest-free grace period until the 31st of March. If you do end up paying the money before that date, then you don't need to pay any interest on that. And then if you request a statement of account, you'll see at the bottom is the references that you've got to use for the payments. So obviously, if it's for income tax, depending on the type of tax you owe money for, they're going to give you the bank account name and then the payments reference. So they will give you a specific reference to make that payment and obviously the amount due. So that is the standard procedure if you owe the receiver of revenue money, if it's just for personal tax or anything like that. Yeah, so I think that's the entry level. So that is the first step, or the entry level where you normally start if you owe the receiver of revenue money. The second one is if there's something that is disputed with the receiver of revenue, then you can apply for a suspension of debt. So normally what would happen is if you receive an assessment from the receiver of revenue, let's say for instance, you've got a rental property and they disallowed all your expenses, and now all of a sudden you maybe end up that you owe the receiver of revenue, let's say for instance 100,000 rand. Then the normal procedure that you would take is you would actually file a notice of objections to say that you want to object against the assessment, that you don't agree with them disallowing the certain expenses. And part of that process, one of the steps that you take there is to do this application for the suspension of payment. So what it will do, it will delay that payment that you owe to the receiver of revenue. They've got this weird statement, or the argument that they use is they pay now, argue later. That is their starting point. So if they make a mistake, they expect you to first make the payment to the receiver of revenue, argue the case with them, and then afterwards you would get your money back from the receiver of revenue. But luckily they put this little block on the return over there. So right there I can see I just snipped it out. If you file disputes for the receiver of revenue, that is the place over there at the bottom where it says suspension of payment. So if you tick that box here while you're busy with the objection process, then you can suspend the payment of their debt until they finish with the audit. So I think that is the second option. And I think because sometimes the receiver of revenue, this year especially, they've been taking ages with finalizing reviews and stuff. So that is always a really good option if you can't pay the money and they issued an assessment and you don't agree with the assessment. The third thing is to apply for a payment arrangement. So you'll see once you submit your tax return, obviously there's going to be an amount due, and then on that assessment at the top, you're going to find this little buttons at the top that you can press. So the first one is make a payment, the second one is payment arrangements, disputes, request for reason, and the close one. So you can see the payment arrangement will take you to a screen where you can apply for a payment arrangement. So by default, I think that they give you by default, I think something like 6 months. Normally, if you extend that payment arrangement period up to about 11 months, so it's normally quite successful to get that through. But as soon as you start going further than 11 months, then there's almost like a finance application that you have to do with the receiver of revenue. So if you've got a company, they're going to ask you for your financial statements and cash flow projections and all that type of stuff to make sure that they're going to be able to get the money back. So that is also a really nice thing that they do have in place there. It's the payment arrangement. So you press the button, fill in the thing. It will give you a simulated payment plan. Once you say accept, they will approve it, and then after that, the only thing is you must make sure that you stay with that payment arrangement, because if for some reason you stop paying that thing, then the full debt becomes liable immediately. So that's really, really important if you look at payment arrangements. The next one is a debt compromise. So that is the next step beyond if you owe the receiver of revenue normal debt. So if you find yourself in a situation where all of a sudden, and let's say, for instance, the receiver of revenue goes back and they give you a lot of assessments for previous years where you maybe made mistakes on returns or something like that, then you can apply for this thing which they call a debt compromise. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can do via e-filing, so you have to approach the receiver of revenue directly, and it is a very long process that you have to go through, because they've got like a panel of people that actually sit and look at every case individually. So it's a long process that you have to go through. So we normally recommend that you get professionals to assist you. So the guys that we normally refer people to is the guys at Tax Consulting South Africa, and they are the go-to guys, in my opinion, when it comes to such debt compromises, because they work with it every day. They've got a full department that only works on these type of things. So if you do owe the receiver of revenue a lot of money, then I would highly recommend that you look at the debt compromise and get in touch with these guys at Tax Consulting so they can assist you. I'll share the link of their website in the description of the video, and make sure to mention my name as well if you do chat to them. I think the next one is liquidations. So I think that is the very last thing. If you go down the steps of extreme or things that you can do, the last thing that you can do is basically to liquidate. So if it's a company, you can apply to get the company liquidated. So they will basically write off all the debt. So they look at what the assets are, what the liabilities are. They sell all the assets of the business. Whatever that they get for the assets, they'll distribute it to the creditors. And the company is basically closed then. It's not first price. Like I said, that is always your last option when it comes to liquidations for individuals. This is always a really bad thing if you have to go to liquidation, because you basically have to get rid of all the assets. You basically just keep the clothes on your body and the food in your cupboard, and then the rest of the stuff, they come sell it. They use that money to pay off the debt. So please, guys, if you can, try and avoid this step, the last step, but it is an option, especially for companies. I know a lot of companies do, if they really battle, they do apply for liquidation. So I think that is the very last thing that you can do. Let's quickly have a look at this. I just copied this over from the Receiver of Revenue's website as well. So they asked the question is what do I do if I don't pay my taxes? So they say it's a criminal offense not to submit the tax return when it's due, and it can be a criminal offense to pay. If you don't pay your taxes, there are a number of debt collection options to our disposal. Collect the debt from someone who holds money on your behalf. So third-party appointments as employers, banks or customers. So we've seen this in the past, that SARS actually applies this. I remember there was one case specifically where the guy, it was a small company, they owed the receiver, let's say for instance 10,000 Rand. At the end of the month, this client phoned me and said, listen, all my debit orders now, somebody took 10,000 Rand out of my bank account. And when we went to go look, it was actually the receiver of revenue. So they went to the bank and said, listen bank, this guy owes us 10,000 Rand, please deduct the money and take it over. They are allowed to do that. So they just take the money whether you approve it or not. So that is something that they can do. But normally when it comes to that, they will normally give you some warning before the time. So normally the first step is they would normally send you like a final demand letter to say, listen, you guys owe us this a certain amount, let's say for instance 10,000 Rand. Please pay this within 10 days to avoid legal action. So if you don't pay or if you don't respond to those letters, then it will go over to the next step where they start this whole process of seeing how they can collect the debt. Second bullet point that they've got there is issue a judgment and have your name blacklisted. So that's really not good. Don't go that way. You see the next bullet point over there is attach and sell your assets. So we were talking about the liquidations just now. That falls into that category. Obtain a preservation order in respect of your assets. If you hold assets offshore, an order can be obtained compelling the assets to be repatriated to South Africa, and in the interim, your right to trade or to travel can be restrained. Or you see the last bullet point over there is they say liquidate or sequestrate your estate. So the receiver of revenue, they don't take nonsense. If you owe them money, these are definitely the steps that they do take. So just make sure that you don't end up in a situation like this, rather pay your taxes. See, they've got another little screenshot over there. They say cost of non-compliance or failure to pay. If after all the collection efforts have not been honored to SARS, SARS will institute enforcement collection actions as follows. Collect the money against a third party in terms of Section 178 of the Tax Administration Act. That's the thing that we talked just now, where they just go and take the money out of your bank account. So just make sure that you do pay your tax. issue a civil judgment or court issue a civil judgment court against the taxpayer, attach your assets of the taxpayer, hold the directors, members, related parties liable for the debt, sequestrate or liquidate the taxpayer, and preserve the assets against the debt. So I think those are the things that you can go through. Yeah, once again, like I say, remember just to like and subscribe to my channel as well. If you've got questions, you're welcome to chat in the comments. So just to recap again, so the 5 things that you can do if you owe the receiver of revenue money is to firstly pay the full balance by the due date. Second thing is to, if the debt is disputed, apply for a suspension of the debt. Third one is to apply for a payment arrangement. Then it becomes more technical, apply for debt compromise. And the last one is liquidations. Yeah, so that's it. So those are the 5 options that you've got if you owe the receiver of revenue money. Remember once again just to give the video a like and subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for the next one. Thanks for watching.